You are listening to More Than a Sniff, a weekly podcast of Western States Canine College. I'm Joe, owner and principal trainer here with my colleagues Chris, Michelle, and Shannon. Today, we are going to talk about
service dog training and service dogs and the different areas of service dogs that we come across and the calls that we get and the questions that we get. And we're going to hopefully clear it up in this podcast. And it's pretty simple overall. And service dog training, or we're just gonna title this, there's service dogs, there's emotional support dogs, and there are therapy dogs. And there are three completely different titles, and there are three completely different jobs that the dog does, and there's three completely different rights that the dogs has. So we're going to start with therapy dogs, and let's talk a little bit about the training. Or Shannon, talk to me about what do therapy dogs do?
So I trained my dog Boston as a therapy dog, and with him, I would take him to the hospital, to the senior citizens home. So in therapy dog, it goes for a visit to the hospital to make the people in the hospital feel happy, to behave themselves in the hospital and not scare the people or get into trouble. So for the training for that, you have to go so many sessions and learn how to behave yourself at the hospital. And then you have to pass basically a canine good citizen style of test where the dog has to obey your commands and be calm in unusual situations, like maybe with equipment or things that they're not used to.
So a therapy dog is owned by a person and is used to assist others in either emotional or physical needs. I've got a couple of therapy dogs that go in and help with physical therapy. So they're kind of helping physical stuff happen. But the majority is an emotional support of somebody else. So it's your dog and you're helping somebody else. And that's the best way to think about that. So it does not mean that it's your own emotional support dog. It means that your dog is working under an organization. Did you work under an organization? So working under an organization that has contracts with different environments that allows the dogs to come into their facilities. And the biggest thing that these organizations carry is the liability insurance, that if the dog does happen to cause injury or harm, that you are not being sued personally. And so it's a big security blanket, really, to do that. But, you're assigned a certain place, you're tested. It's not a certification. It's just that you've passed the test under these organizations' criteria, and that they feel like that based on their liability insurance criteria is that your dog and you fit in that as a team to go into facilities. So let's talk about an emotional support dog. Michelle?
An emotional support dog is, I guess, exactly what it says it is. It's your personal dog that is there to emotionally support you. A lot of times it'll be you'll just get a doctor's note and stuff like that, so that you can have your dog in your apartment and stuff like that for emotional reasons.
So with emotional support, your dog is not allowed out in public places that dogs are not allowed. I mean, you can take them out in public, but you can't go into restaurants. At least here in Utah, there's other states that there's some restaurants that allow you to have your dogs in. But your emotional support dog is a companion dog that helps you emotionally, and you have two rights with an emotional support dog. One is that you have housing rights, and that you cannot be turned down for housing because you have an emotional support dog. And the most housing people ask for a note from your doctor. There is no certification. There's nothing that says your dog is trained well enough to be an emotional support dog whatsoever. It is that this person needs this dog to be able to feel safe in their home or to sleep or to settle, but it doesn't give you the right to go into public places that dogs are not allowed to go. The other right of an emotional support dog is airline travel, where the dog can assist you on the airplane. And you do have to have all the proper documentation of a health certificate if you're traveling. They typically will also ask for some type of a medical note, but it's not required. There's not even any vests of sorts that it's required. The biggest thing that the vests do is it just identifies your dog, so you're not being questioned with it. But when you take your dog, your emotional support dog, housing does not have the right to ask you what your problem is or why you need an emotional support dog, but they can ask what your dog does for you. So the question that I get a lot, and I probably get 2 phone calls a week on, can you write me a letter so that I can get into this apartment because I really want to live there? And they don't need their dog's not an emotional support dog. They just want to live in this place that doesn't allow dogs to be there. And so they want their dogs to be there. And that's not something that we condone or do. But that's one of the biggest questions that I get on an emotional support dog side. So, Michelle, what's your thoughts on all that?
You want my real thoughts?
Yep.
I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, because there are definitely people out there that need emotional support animals, but it is extremely, extremely, people are, what's the word I'm looking for? Overusing it. Yeah. There's just no reason for them to live in those houses if they don't need the dog, right? More that I get than not is people tell me it's an emotional support animal when they are in like Walmart or something, and it drives me crazy, to be honest with you. And it probably drives those people crazy that do have an emotional support dog, that they actually need it because it's giving them a bad name.
It's a hard line because there's no regulations really on it. I mean, it's clear in the American Disability Act. It's very clear on what they are, but people don't even know how to find it. People don't even know what it is. And it's very taboo, and organizations or businesses are very scared to start asking questions. Or businesses do have a right to ask you to leave if your dog is not behaving. They don't, service dog or emotional support dog or whatever, they can ask you to leave. So so everybody gets away with it because everybody's afraid to ask because they don't want, because they don't know what they can do. So if we have an emotional support dog, I cannot take my emotional support dog grocery shopping. I cannot take my dog out to dinner. I cannot take my dog to the doctor's office. They don't have those same rights as a service dog. So let's talk about a service dog. A service dog, according to the American Disability Act, has to perform tasks to help with your ability. And being able to perform a task is really important. And I get the question of, well, I have PTSD, and that is an emotional, it's categorized under emotional, but there's very, very specific tasks that a dog will do for a person that has been diagnosed with PTSD. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And that's kind of the gray area, and that's somewhat of where people are holding on to is, well, I have I have PTSD. And then once, you start asking questions, it's more that they have anxieties they've never been diagnosed with, PTSD. So a service dog has to be able to perform tasks for you, and for the betterment of yourself, to be able to go out into public and to be able to function as if you did not have the disability. And so it goes something like this. 3 physical tasks for somebody that is in a wheelchair would be that the dog picks things up for you that has been dropped. The dog can take a credit card from your hand and to deliver it to a cashier. A dog can open doors or hold doors open for you. Those are things that people in wheelchairs struggle with. And I challenge you, I spent a week in a wheelchair when I was training in Michigan for a service dog organization. I spent a week in a wheelchair. And boy, you're thankful for that dog, but in the same breath, it's also one more thing. It's one more thing that you have to juggle. And that's the piece that people don't understand is people that have a service dog, that are truly needing a service dog, it is something that they are trying to better their life or make their life easier with, but the struggles are huge. Another task for somebody that has been diagnosed with epilepsy, there's all kinds of different seizures that seizure responses that happen where some people that seize just need pressure put on them to help them come through their seizures. Other people need the dog to gather up their things that they drop, because there's nothing that they can do but other than get through the seizures. And there's others that just need the dog to go get help, to go get somebody. And so there's definitely there's one dog that he learned to push a 911 button. Because that's what could happen. And this person could not really go out in public without others if she didn't have this dog. So your service dogs and service dogs in training have the same rights as human beings do as far as where they can go. However, they do have to be under control and they do have to be training. It's not a social event. And again, it's important to not take advantage. We see it all the time where people are claiming service dogs, and from a training standpoint, from a dog trainer standpoint, there's just certain things that we notice that you're like, that's not a service dog. Michelle, do you have some examples of those?
Of people saying they have service dogs when they really don't. I have quite a few of them, actually. I mean, even in my own family, there's a few people I could tell you that I have one that she takes her dog into every grocery store and she says it's a service dog, but really she thinks it's an emotional support dog, which even then it's even not that. But she will tell anybody that asks that it's a service dog because she has PTSD or something of that nature. I had an uncle that he adopted a dog after a guy that needed a service dog, like had trained a service dog, but the guy had died and he adopted the dog after that. Claims that dog as a service dog, even though it does absolutely no tasks for him. I mean, it happens all the time. And I really think the emotional support dogs are really extremely ruining it for the people that actually need service dogs. Yeah.
Shannon, what do you find to be the most frustrating overall when you see it?
Well, we actually see a lot of service dogs at the veterinarian. Well, we just see a lot of dogs in general. So let's say that. I know 3 people that have service dogs that are actually service dogs. And they're just really great to have at the vet because they are trained to not react with things or people that are going on around them. And they, provide their service to their person that is at the vet. And that's a good visit. We had a lot of people that bring in dogs that are training to be guide dogs, and so they'll volunteer to have the puppy until it's the age that they want it to go into training, and then they send it back to the organization that's going to train it as a guide dog, and those are just puppies. But we have the dogs that are not service dogs. You know they're not service dogs. They come in the vet, they have some kind of vest, and they're leash reactive, and they're aggressive. They're trying to bite people in the office. They're getting in fights with other dogs, and that can be dangerous for someone that has a real service dog. What if someone that has a real service dog comes into the vet for their service, and someone who doesn't have a service dog comes in and it's a leash reactive, aggressive dog, and it hurts that person's dog? Then what do? Having a real trained service dog for some of these people costs thousands of dollars. It's an investment that they're made because they need help, and then it's ruined by somebody that just puts a vest on their dog and says it's a service dog because they want it to have special privileges that it doesn't deserve.
It's such a touchy subject, and if people will take the time to get onto the American Disability Act website, it really is clear. And there is no certifications, and that's why people can get it. But there is also some great information on there as a business owner of what your rights are on there. I had a business owner call me, and he said, hey, I've got all these college kids coming in with their puppies that they're training for service dogs for this organization, and they come in and they let the puppies off leash, and they're running all over my store, and they got really mad at me because I told them that they needed to leave, and they told me that I couldn't tell them to leave because these are puppies in service dog training, and that they were going to get PD involved, and just really like all kinds of things at him. And it's scary because all of a sudden your business is on the news for bashing service dogs. And that's the spin to it. And so I just sent him over the documentation on the American Disability Act website of this is a description of how your dog should act in public, training or not, and that you do as a business owner have the right to ask them to leave if their dog is not following the regulations on the American Disability Act. And so on both sides of the fence, I encourage business owners out there to read and understand what the rights are and what the requirements are of a service dog. And two, I also encourage those that do have service dogs probably should understand what the laws are before they're yelling back and getting mad at other people. I was just in a restaurant the other day, and this big Malamute was trying to steal food off of somebody else's table. Had a vest on and all, though. And the dog actually was not even attached to the owner in the restaurant. And I went up and talked to her about it because that's just not okay. And they are ruining it for those people that truly need it. And so a service dog is a dog that's owned by you, that assists you in your day-to-day life based on your disability. And PTSD is considered a disability, and there are specific tasks, and that individual is it's very specific and it's very custom depending upon the PTSD. My father, who had a PTSD service dog, would actually, my dad was, before we got help for him, he was actually quite reckless. And he would go in and drink and start fighting in the bars in California. And so what his dog actually did for him was, when his pheromones would shift into aggression, his dog actually would grab a hold of his hand and pull him out, like, I got to go to the bathroom, and just like force him out of the bar. And he saved him from many fights. And he would call and tell me, he's like, oh, this dog just saved my life. He goes, I was getting so mad, or, he's telling the story, and the dog learned to shift with him and know that he just needed to get him to go for a walk, to change and get him settled back in. And so So my dad was able to start functioning in society again and not getting angry and causing fights everywhere. He would even start yelling at people on the streets for something that they had no idea that they did, but it would trigger him. And so it really shifted my dad's life, and he stopped drinking and just made some pretty drastic changes. Unfortunately, his dog died of seizures. But the time that he had with him, it definitely helped him. And so PTSD is considered an emotional disability. However, it is categorized under, there are tasks that a dog can perform for PTSD. And so, the big thing I think for this podcast is, don't have your dog as a companion. Take them to places that they can go. There's plenty out there in the United States. I've been in many states, and there are lots of places that you can take your dog. There's lots of coffee shops you can go sit at and take your dog. There's, open patio restaurants that do allow some dogs on their patios, but they don't have to go everywhere. And fully trained or not, your dog does not need to go everywhere with you. And so don't take advantage of the laws. Don't take advantage of what you feel should happen, because the people that truly need those service dogs, it's being ruined. And it's a journey, and it's a hard journey for those people that actually do need those service dogs and those emotional support dogs. And if you want to take your dog out in public and to help others, then go through therapy dog courses and take your dog out and let them help others and be a part of that. But don't take advantage of the law, and educate yourself on service dogs and therapy support dogs. Shannon, do you have anything else to contribute? Michelle?
I just wanted to add on to those, the college kids that you had to go talk to at that place. I think throughout this podcast, Joe and myself and Shannon have expressed how passionate we are about sticking to those laws and how they are there for somebody. And shame on those kids. Like, shame on them. They not are only doing a disservice to that shop owner, they're doing a disservice to the dogs, and they're doing a huge disservice to whoever ends up with those dogs. Because training does start when they're puppies, and that's a huge part of why those organizations put them in homes, is so that they can get used to home life, not running around a shop. Like, it's not okay. That being said, I never want to discourage people from helping those organizations out. If you want to, let us know, and we'd love to help out.
It's great. It is a strong passion of ours. So we're going to, in a couple of months, actually have one of our clients. She will be in Utah. She lives up in Oregon now. Oregon or Washington, I can't remember which one. But she's going to be down, and she's going to be on the podcast and talk about her journey with her service dog. Her service dog is a Portuguese water dog, and we picked him out from puppyhood, and she's got some heart problems that he senses the shift in her pheromones, and he actually gets her to sit down so that she doesn't pass out. And it's been a fascinating journey, and he has been all over. And she definitely will have some fun insights on some of the struggles that she has, but also, what it means to actually have a disability and have a service dog by your side. And we look forward to having her on here. So this isn't the end of Service Dog Worlds. We'll be talking about it on and off, but she will be joining our podcast during that month and really share some insights of service dog training.
Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com. And as always, we urge you to get out and train.